what I take away from this is for the first time that I can recall a politician taking on big food and big pharma. And I welcome him to the fold. I've been preaching this message from this pulpit for 30 plus years. And finally, people are coming around to my voice. And a voice like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm going to share this with you because I found it to be very enlightening and very frightening to the food industry and big pharma. And those who want to embrace sickness in America. The average American, this is from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who died from COVID, had 3.8 chronic diseases. These were people with immune system collapse and mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, what that means is literally all your cells in the human body have what we call mitochondria. Those are engines. That's what makes a cell stay alive. So that's where they metabolize energy, what we call ATP. And no other country has anything like this. 2/3 of American adults and children suffer from chronic health issues. 50 years ago, that number was less than 1%. Less than 1%. We have gone from 1% to 66%. In America, 74% of Americans are now overweight or obese, and that's all Americans. Adults is much higher. 50% of our children are overweight. 120 years ago, when someone was obese, they were sent to the circus. There were case reports obesity was almost unknown. In Japan, the childhood obesity rate is 3%, compared to 50% here. Half of Americans have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. 80%, and I'm adding this, of Americans over 55 are pre-diabetic or diabetic. He says, when my uncle was president, juvenile diabetes was effectively non-existent. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walk through a doctor's door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. So what is causing this suffering? I will name 2 culprits. First and the worst is ultra-processed foods. About 70% of children's diets are ultra-processed. That means industrial manufacturing. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. You have to understand, in nature, you don't have seed oils. They have to be processed. That means things like from sunflower. That means things like from soy, canola. Those are seed oils that are in almost all of our processed foods. Laboratory scientists who previously worked for the cigarette industry, companies that purchased the big food corporations in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out chemicals to make foods more addictive. They've done a great job. These ingredients did not exist 100 years ago, and humans are not biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are banned in Europe, but are ubiquitous in American processed foods. He couldn't have said it any better. So what are we going to do about it? Let me share this with you. This is from the Journal of Nutritional Health and Food Engineering. This may sound strange, strange to many, but have you ever wondered how the fast food industry, pharmaceutical, and healthcare industry may be working together to create markets that feed upon each other? Few will argue that most fast food places do not serve the most healthy or nutritious fare. The high fat, high salt, and high sugar content of most fast foods and processed packaged foods in general is viewed as not the healthiest things you can eat. Yet most people constantly indulge in them while ignoring their expanding waistlines, ever rising blood pressure, and climbing glycemic blood glucose. Many of the most Americans are on some form of medication to treat health conditions typically brought on by lifestyle choices. Choosing fast foods over meals prepared at home is one of the lifestyle choices. Picking up the phone and ordering food instead of preparing a more nutritious and balanced meal at home is all too often the case, especially with young single people. It's just easier. The fast food market business is rapidly expanding outside the USA. You can walk down the street in Hong Kong and see McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and other fast food establishments popping up. In almost every country on the planet, you see American fast food chains selling their products. The rise in obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, arterial disease, cancers, autism in children, ADHD in adults and children, and more, all seem to be directly correlated to the rise in fast food and processed food consumption. The pharmaceutical industry has blossomed, as in cases of heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes have continued to rise. More foods hit the market, and all you need to do is watch TV to see the plethora of new drugs. Then there are debilitating side effects of these drugs listed by fast-talking admin, but ignored by the viewers, that generate more prescriptions to treat the side effects of the drugs previously prescribed. Now, if you're like me, and you turn on your television in the morning, I do this at about 3:30 because I get up that early to start working with people. You see nothing but, they say, plethora of commercials for drugs. Then you hear the ad men real quickly read at the bottom the side effects of the medications, listed in small type. Those side effects create an environment to be treated by other drugs due to the drug that's been prescribed for your condition. And the food feeds right into it. So when he started talking about this stuff, on TV, I mean, I was glued to it, just like many other Americans were, what he had to say. Here are your top 10 chronic conditions in older Americans, older adults. I'm one of them. I'm almost 70. Age, family genetics, and gender make it nearly impossible for older adults to avoid becoming a chronic disease statistic. According to NCOA research, 94.9%, now listen to this, 94.9% of adults age 60 and older have at least one condition, while 78.7% have two or more. You probably have a parent or grandparent who is managing a condition right now, or perhaps you are managing one yourself. Here they are. 60% of adults over the age of 65 have high blood pressure. 51% high cholesterol. 42% obese. That doesn't include overweight. 35% arthritis. 29% heart disease. 27% diabetes. 25% chronic kidney disease. 15% heart failure. 16% depression. 12% Alzheimer's disease and dementia. It goes on and on. And it's all tied to nutrition or lack of it and lifestyle. All tied to it. Because the researchers are now crying out, listen to me. Listen to me. Our diets suck. We're eating the wrong types of foods. We are not genetically equipped to digest not only seed oils that are non-existent in nature, but the bombardment of processed carbohydrates that are not existent in nature either. In the real world, what our ancestors found, I'm talking before modern age, cavemen, if you want to call them that, Cro-Magnon man, our direct descendants, who existed before the end of the Ice Age. Now, this might seem a little bit primitive, but it's true. They didn't have bread. They didn't have cereals, rice or corn, fruit juice, and they didn't have excessive carbohydrates all year round. You can go in any grocery store, walk through the produce section, you see tables and tables of fruit and vegetables that grow seasonally. That means only a certain time of the year, and they were picked from the vine or the branch ripe. They weren't stuck in the refrigerators, so you had a short period of time where we consumed these foods. Maybe 3-4 weeks. Yeah, that's it. The rest of the year, we relied strictly on an animal-based diet. We ate the whole animal, including the organs. And here we are, hundreds of thousands of years later, alive. So if we needed these processed foods, we would have died a long time ago. But we didn't. So this type of diet is killing us. And finally, I can say people are hearing what I've been saying all these years. Finally, listen to me. I was called a quack many years ago by a number of people in this valley who are proponents of certain health, one was on this radio station years back. Finally, they're hearing my message. You listen to The Good Life with Lance Ray, Dr. Fitness. The phone number here is 602-260-5394. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Good Life with Lance Ray, Dr. Fitness. That's me. The phone number here at the studio is 602-260-5394 is the number. And so when you look at this stuff, and I mean, I'm going to refer back to what Robert F. Kennedy was saying. We're killing ourselves with our diet, our lifestyle. And the main culprit in this whole thing is the hormone insulin. It's a master hormone. You need it to make fat. You need it to store up fat. So the medications that they're designing around obesity and diabetes have to do with this hormone, trying to regulate it more. But what they're finding in this whole process, that people that take insulin that are type 2 diabetics die earlier or sooner. Now you can say, well, that's because of progression of disease. Yes, because the insulin's speeding the process up. Because type 2 diabetics, for those that are out there that are type 2, you're not deficient in insulin at all. You're resistant to it, which means you're not using it efficiently. This is from the James C. Kennedy Wellness Center. When you hear the words insulin, what sort of things come to mind? Or maybe you never heard of insulin, or maybe you heard of it, and that is about it. Turns out, insulin is one of the driving factors in why we gain weight, get heart disease, high cholesterol, blood pressure, triglycerides, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and obesity. Let me explain. Insulin is an anabolic building storing hormone known as the master hormone. Hormones are basically messengers in the body that tell things what to do and where to go in order for our body to stay in balance and function. Well, in the case of insulin, it is made in the pancreas and is released in response to rising levels of blood sugar. So, how does blood sugar rise? When we eat carbohydrates, especially refined ones like bread, cereal, rice, pasta, candy, cakes, rice, corn, and sugar. Blood sugar levels rise. Insulin then comes in and takes the sugar from the blood to other body cells for energy. The more carbohydrates, especially refined ones, and processed ones. And the more often we eat, the more insulin that is released. When we eat eggs, avocado, and bacon, hardly any insulin is released because there are few carbohydrates in those foods. Whereas when we eat oatmeal, toast, yogurt, or cereal, a lot of insulin is released because those foods are much higher in carbohydrates. The process works fine until our cells become too full of sugar. Because of their tendency to overconsume, especially refined carbohydrates, our cells especially become too full of sugar. Now, are you aware of this? Muscle. You can only store 2.04 grams of glycogen, that's storable sugar, per 1 pound of muscle. 2.04. Put that in perspective. There's 28 grams in 1 ounce. So you're looking at like a tenth of an ounce in every pound of meat or muscles that you have. It says to protect themselves from damage to toxic levels of sugar, they start ignoring insulin signal to store, becoming insulin resistant. The pancreas senses this and produces more insulin to keep blood sugars down. High insulin levels are just as dangerous as high blood sugar, but unfortunately our doctors don't measure or talk about this too often. Now, if you go into your doctor, I'm going to give you some advice. Ask him to do a fasting insulin test on you. Now, the levels that come back from the laboratory will tell you that you're fine if your levels are up in the teens and low 20s. Actually, according to researchers, we start to see problems when our fasting insulin starts to go above 7, 10's the cutoff mark. So make sure you test for that because your fasting glucose levels do not reflect fasting insulin. And your A1C, which is the average blood sugar over a 3 to 4 month period, does not reflect fasting insulin. So ask for that test. It says high insulin levels can cause the heart and cardiovascular system to promote weight gain, can damage the heart, I should say. The more insulin floating around in the bloodstream, the more fat we store, which leads to weight gain. So when our cells start ignoring insulin signals to store sugar, the pancreas produces more insulin to compensate for that and to keep blood sugar levels down. Also, the insulin causes cellular damage, inflammation in the artery walls. It causes glycation or sugar coating of all of our cells, including the organs. It accelerates aging of the skin. So when a person's eating lots of carbohydrates in their diet and lots of fructose, which is 7.5 times more reactive than glucose. Yes, that's right. Fructose causes faster aging than glucose does in excess. Faster. 7.5 times as quickly. So those cells become sugar-coated. Yes. You can see it in the skin everywhere. So ladies, if you're looking to slow the aging process down, watch the carb intake, particularly fructose. A low-carbohydrate diet slows cellular aging down. Watching the seed oils, which everybody's talking about now, you'll find you don't get many seed oils on a low-carbohydrate diet because you're not eating foods that have it in it, which are highly processed foods, like your breads, your corn, your cereals, and your pastries, and all your desserts are loaded with it because it can be stored on the store shelf and not spoil. Phone number here is 602-260-5394. So when he joined Trump's team, I said, finally, maybe we'll get somebody in the government who will address the issues of our food and get in the face of the food companies and get in the face of big pharma and shut some of them down. We're making Cadillac drugs to treat conditions that are created by our health, by our lifestyles. And Ozempic's a good one right there. They're talking about this being the number one selling medication of all time. He also mentioned the number of cancer cases in younger people from our ultra-processed diet. Then they're working on new cancer drugs. But no one talks about nutrition. Because you have many people that are in government have their fingers in the cookie jar with big pharma and big food. They make money off those stocks. They're not going to tell you. The more people that are sick, the more they make. Well, that's okay. We'll fund it with Medicare. We'll pay for the government will give you money. We'll pay for it out of our taxpayers' dollars. I might sound like I'm a little bit aggravated, but I'm not. I'm really happy about this stuff because finally, my message is getting out there. All right, we're going to get back at the topic again. I am so excited about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joining the Trump team. Finally, we're going to get someone in the White House, someone in our government who's going to address health. Health, yeah, in the face, not drugs, not pushing prepackaged, ultra-processed food. Somebody who will address it and be honest with you. Over-intoxication of our population with junk food and drugs. Make a vaccine. I'm not going to go there. Okay, here, this is for everybody. Okay, anyhow, this is from Live Science. Eating too much sugar may accelerate cellular aging. In a new study, women who followed diets low in carbohydrates, sugar, and high in nutrients had younger-looking cells. Sounds like my wife. A nutrient-rich diet with few added sugars may slow rates of biological aging. In women, new research suggests a new study published Monday, July 29th, in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Network Open. Scientists found that middle-aged women who ate more foods packed with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants had younger-looking cells than those consumed less nutrient-dense foods. They judged the usefulness of cells by looking at chemical tags known as the methyl groups on the surface of DNA molecules. These tags tweak the activity of specific genes without altering the underlying DNA code, a process known as epigenetic modification. The pattern of these methyl groups changes as we age, which is believed to contribute to accelerated aging. While nutrient-rich diets are tied to slower aging, added sugars seem to dampen the effect. In the study, women who consumed high amounts of added sugars showed signs of hastened cellular aging compared to others, even if they ate an otherwise healthy diet, the researchers found. Added sugars referred to sugars that are added to food during production. There we go. Processed foods, such as those as sugar-laden drinks, baked goods, as opposed to naturally occurring sugars found in milk, fruit, and vegetables. The new study is one of the first to demonstrate a link between added sugar consumption and so-called epigenetic aging. The authors said it also is the first to investigate the association in both black and white women in middle life. They noted the participants were 39 years of age on average. We knew that high levels of added sugars are linked to worsened metabolic health and early disease, possibly more than other dietary factors. Study co-author Elisa Epel, professor of psychiatry at the University of California, San Francisco, said in a statement, "Now we know that accelerated epigenetic aging is underlying this relationship, and this is likely one of many ways that excessive sugar intake limits healthy longevity." It goes on to say more and more about vitamin deficiencies and things like that. But also, when you look at a higher carbohydrate, higher processed food diet, and also seed oils are in these as well. And we need to understand, I explain this to people, that these seed oils are omega-6 fatty acids. And what is that? You have what we call essential. Those that are needed in the diet for health and stay alive, we have omega-3 and omega-6. Then we have the other ones which are not essential. Okay, and the omega-6 we cause inflammatory processes. Okay, and the omega-3 take that down. Well, we need insulin to modulate that effect in the liver to convert those into inflammatory prostaglandins or inflammatory hormones. Okay, we have to convert that omega-6 into that. And so when people eat these processed foods that you find omega-6 seed oils in, which are like they said here, your cakes and cereals and things like that, then you're dumping this into your system, and the insulin from the high carbohydrate content is converting this into inflammatory hormones that affect aging at the cellular level. not only in the organs, but also in the skin. So if you're looking to cut this down by following a lower carbohydrate diet, you're going to have less of an insulin effect. And because lower carbohydrate, you have less of these ultra-processed seed oils that are in the diet that are causing all kinds of damage. But of course, your government's not going to tell you that. And Big Pharma's not going to tell you that. And Big Food's not going to tell you that. But Dr. Fitness tells you that. He tells you this all the time. So if you're looking to do these things and you're having a difficult time, you need to get on my Eat Like Lance diet. There's no drug. I mean, we hear tons of commercials, even on this radio station, for medications to lose weight. No medication does or takes the place of lifestyle. I don't care what it is. All right. We've been going at this thing now for a while. I'm really happy that Robert Kennedy is joining the Trump team, because finally someone's going to get in the face of big food and big pharma, okay, and spell the facts out that they have to defend themselves. And he was stating fact-based information that's been around for a while that you can find out there. We have a population that's extremely obese. We have sick kids. Most people in this country have some form of chronic disease that was non-existent 50 years ago. Obesity is pushing nearly 50%, with another 30+% overweight. And all our government can do and Big Pharma can do to deal with this is come up with more medications. That the only ones benefit from are the stockholders in these drugs. I mean, in these companies. So of course they're spewing our bad diet to other parts of the world, because when you look at the world population, it's nearly 5 trillion, I think it is, or more. So if you get those other people sick in other countries by getting them on the American diet, ultra-processed foods, high carbohydrates, cheap food, then Big Pharma makes more money. And the stockholders make more too. Oh, they like this, because they're not going to eat this diet. They're going to have the best food, the best cuts of meat, vegetables, nothing processed. But us, they want us to have this stuff. Not good. And even the University of Alabama, Birmingham, they talked for years, and all the research being done there on diet for the aging body, for people my age. The best one they found that reversed the effects of diabetes, improved the lipid profile of older people, was a low carbohydrate diet. And unfortunately, people in my age group, they don't do that. They eat highly processed, high carbohydrate foods, easy to prepare, highly addictive. And of course, the majority of medications that are being marketed are marketed to people my age and older. Because we don't take 1 or 2 medications. We're taking 8, 10, 15 of them. All that money being poured into drugs. All the food that these people have eaten to create the environment for more drug use. Medications that you get, you go to your doctor, you get a prescription for, you go down to a pharmacy, you get it filled. Here we go. 30 days later, same thing. The average diabetic spends about $14,000 a year on medications. And that doesn't include doctor's visits or if they end up in a hospital. And what can reverse this is changing your lifestyle. And the way to change your lifestyle is not to take another medication that you hear advertised to treat obesity or weight gain. You can't be on those drugs forever, and they're very expensive. You need to call someone like me and get in there and get yourself on a lifestyle program that includes food and fitness and accountability. Food, fitness, accountability.